I want to talk to you about a choice that we all have to make, and it's time we make it. We either believe in an American dream or we believe in the American nightmare. Now, the American dream has changed. It was changed by FDR, quite frankly. It was changed to everybody has a house, everybody has a car, everybody has enough. That's not what the American dream was. The American dream was to come here and to start something and be your own person. Be able to have control over your own life. Now, the other American dream, while it was officially kind of changed and mutated by the FDR administration, that American dream that he was touting was prevalent in America for a long time. Started in 1619. Started in Jamestown. We started bringing slaves in. The British did. People came here for money and power. But that's not the American dream. That always turns into the American nightmare. The world has always had dreams and nightmares. Man makes both of them. But man has made nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. And usually, in the modern world, it was done in the name of common good over common sense. It was done in the name of power and control instead of control on power. That's the fundamental difference between the dream and the nightmare. And we have to decide which one we want to be a part of. Because they're both very real. The American dream is as real as the American nightmare. But nobody's being taught this anymore. Of all places, George Washington University celebrated Transgiving last week. University of Florida students last week marked it by calling it a celebration of genocide. Well, I guess it is if you believe that America was founded in 1619, but it wasn't. Even the American dream wasn't part of anything to do with Jamestown. That was the American nightmare. But that's being taught, as the New York Times calls it, 1619. Now 1619 is being taught even in your children's schools. And I'm not talking about high school. They are now starting to teach that America began in 1619. We've had enough nightmares. We've had genocide. We've had people like FDR who recrafted the dream. Remember, recrafted it from this idea that you can make it yourself to an all-powerful government whose birth was 1619 in Jamestown, which allowed him, the progressive hero, to put Japanese in internment camps. It allowed Jackson to round up the Indians and slaughter them. There's a new book out that I've been reading. It's about Sidney Gottlieb. I don't know if that name triggers anything in you. Perhaps it should. Here's a guy who retired at 55 years old. By all accounts, people who knew him at his retirement, everybody thought he was a great guy. He went and he decided that he wanted to finally do what he and his wife had always wanted to do, and that is go down to the port and just get on the next ship, wherever it was going, no agenda, and just serve people. So he went to Asia, and he was serving as a doctor there. He went to India. He started living in leper colonies. He was one that would embrace the lepers and help them. By all accounts, this guy was great. until the United States Senate called him back because they wanted to know what the CIA's chief medical scientist had done in the previous 25 years. He was experimenting on children as young as 6. He was the guy who used LSD and heroin as mind control drugs. He developed the torture techniques that we're all ashamed of. He is America's Jekyll and Hyde. How did that happen? How does a guy who is serving people, how does he go do the things that he did? By the way, he was never brought to trial. He was never really fully exposed because he burned all of the documents. Everything the CIA had on him, he destroyed before he left. He knew. He also committed suicide before any more could be dug up about him. He knew. He knew, but he had justified it in the name of this great country, in the service of the greater good. And he used science in the same way that Winston Churchill spoke of. Churchill said, "We are in a time where the world is made darker by the dark lights of perverted science." Boy, does that sound like it could be said today. We are living in the world that is made darker by the dark lights of perverted science. We have to choose common sense over the common good, power and control, or power or control over power. We must choose the bright lights of truth over the dark lights of perverted science. If we don't, those who follow the path set in 1619, one of slavery, plunder, and death, will repeat itself, especially if that's all they know. And it will be done in the name of superiority or superior race, superior thought even. It doesn't make a difference. Are you saying that everything is the same? No, there is superior thought. There is. There are superior cultures. I think our culture is superior over a cannibalistic culture. But the idea has to be based on common sense over common good. Because it's common sense that we, I think, parrot, and yet we don't really ever stop to search its meaning. See, the difference between 1619 and 1620, where the Pilgrims landed, is it was about the individual, and it wasn't about stuff. It was about being able to control your own life and have your own ideas, to worship God in your own way. But you had to live with your neighbors. See, in Jamestown, they didn't have Thanksgiving. But in Plymouth, they did. And they had it with the Native Americans. They had the longest running peace treaty with the Native Americans in our history. The Pilgrims did. The Pilgrims did. And by the way, they didn't break it. It was the Native American that broke it. But see, out of the Pilgrims came the idea that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. You know the words, and they all sound like blah, 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 blah to most people because they think people didn't mean it. And you know what? A lot of people didn't. A lot of people still don't. A lot of people on Capitol Hill today will tell you all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. They'll usually drop the Creator part, and they don't mean equal. They mean equal. Yes, we're all equal, but some are more equal than others. But it is only the search for the true meaning of that that stops oppression, stops one man on top oppressing the other, rich over poor, powerful over the weak. It was a revolutionary idea in 1620. It's a revolutionary idea in 1776. It's still a revolutionary idea all around the world. This is why you saw over the weekend people gathering in Hong Kong flying American flags. Because it's still a revolutionary idea. It's strange to me that I can watch a group of people literally on the other side of the earth, and I can watch them in real time on technology that came from this country, came from individuals having the power to create and keep their creation. We can watch on those devices people across the world holding American flags. It seems as though they know who we are, as more and more Americans forget. Or perhaps we've fallen asleep. Or in the best case scenario, perhaps those who know the difference have just fallen silent, thinking that it's okay to stay out of the fray, thinking that this too shall pass. I don't want to get involved. It's time to find ourselves again. It's time to stand up. It's time to give thanksgiving. It's time to learn from the nightmares while rekindling the dream.